Hey, it's really Rafe, and today we're gonna make this Walking Dead kind of shadow box Halloween decor. So I'm looking for a frame, one that's kind of flat and rectangular. I think we're gonna settle on this one. I just went to the dollar store and got these dolls, and I'm gonna remove the arms and hands. I'll probably take the heads off and use those for a craft later too. The great thing about this is that it's super easy to make. I think this was probably around like $5. I had some scrap mat board, and I'm just gonna trace out the outline of the actual frame right here. And then this little necklace is gonna be perfect for the chain that I want to put onto the door. So once I trace it out, I'm gonna actually trace out the back side of it as well. And that's just because I want to make sure that everything lines up. And this is a really fun craft. It actually only took me an hour or so to do. Here's the reference that I'm using right here. Don't open, dead inside. And we're going to try to make these hands. We're going to also make the wood, the handles. Right here I'm just measuring the center line so that way that I can make the doors. And this is probably the most tedious part because you want to make sure that it sets into the frame. After this, there really wasn't a lot of measuring that I had to do. It didn't have to be so precise or accurate. So that was a struggle getting that first one off, but then I realized that they just simply pop off. I thought I had to snap them off. And then we're just going to cut along here. I've got a mat underneath so that way the table's protected. And I recommend going slow, doing multiple cuts, just because you don't want to have to remeasure everything and start over. Making sure I get the corners really well. Right now I'm doing the doors, and then when I do the edges, I'm going to make sure not to cut too far over so that way that I don't slice open the frame. So less is more, just take your time, and eventually the knife you'll feel when it goes through. And then I'm just going to clean up these edges and these corners so I can make sure that it opens up easily. And then we'll get ready to score the back side of it. So once we flip it over, we're just going to make a line right here. And we're going to score it a couple times just to make it to where it can fold. And just clean up those edges some more. And then we'll try to hold it and fold it back. So it's not, I have to score it a little bit more so that way it can like fold. Don't force it because you don't want to bend the edge of the frame either because it's supposed to be a door. So now we're just going to make sure that everything lines up and fits inside. And it does. So now what we're going to do is we're going to just paint the back of the frame. And this is the part where it's got the stand on it. And this doesn't have to be perfect because it is going to be in the back and it'll get covered up eventually. I'm going to test out some different colors when it comes to the markers. But first I'm going to clean up any lines that are there so that way it doesn't show. Because once the marker goes on, then it's going to be too late to try to remove it. So I'm testing out a couple colors right here. And I'm going to settle for this one as a base coat. And we're just going to go back and forth across the whole thing. And it doesn't have to be perfect because we're actually going to do a few different techniques on this to really try to make it look more realistic and as close to the reference photo as we can. So these are all just the undertones that I'm adding in, and it probably doesn't even make sense, but as it gets towards the end of it, of me blending and creating it, then it'll start to make more sense. But all these little undertones and coats and layers are all going to shine through, and it's going to give it just a little bit more depth and make it have that realistic appearance. So here I am going in with the paint. You can see that I'm just kind of dabbing it and smearing it around. It's nothing specific except for your reference, but there's no specific way to paint it on. I like to paint with like different brushes, with sometimes I'll use like paper towel or even just finger painting. So just try out and see what works best for you. So this first layer is looking pretty good. I need to add a little bit more white into this and some blacks and grays so that we can give it that distressed look and feel, kind of like how that photo has. And we're just going to blend that out. So now I'm just going to go along the edges, try to add in these blacks and whites. And this is what's really going to give it the contrast and make all the other colors that we added in the beginning pop. So again, thin layers. We're going to go through and hit our edges too. And this I'm just doing with a Sharpie. And you can see I didn't quite have that cut all the way through, or that one. And thank goodness it didn't rip or anything or pull the paint when I forced it open. So I'm liking the way that this is looking. It's kind of lining up, matching up. I like the white at the top. Now this is the hard part because I'm going to have to just freehand this and try to get it right and make sure that I don't make any mistakes. So I'm just going to kind of try to visualize it and map it out and just keep using my reference and going back and forth. And then I'll come back after I outline everything, and then I'll start to like fill it in. Now, the reason that I want to fill it in, even though we're going to be doing some more painting, is that if I only left the line on it, with the painting and techniques that we're about to do, you might not be able to see where you wrote that after you paint over it with these techniques. And then it would be a challenge to have to redo it all over again. I'd rather color it in, get it nice and saturated, and then go back over it once I'm done with it again. Now I am noticing that I've kind of made a mistake right here because on the left side where it says open, you can see that the N is too close to the door where it opens. And the reason I'm noticing that now is because I know that the handle is going to go there. So I should have moved that O further back, but hey, it's okay. And here I'm just going through with some different techniques just to apply some different textures so that way it seems more realistic. And all these little things that we're doing are going to compound and add on to each other. So now we're going to make the handles. I'm just taking a piece of that mat board and just going through with some silver paint pen and a marker. And now we're going to make like some little X's right here so that way we can poke these handles through. And what I found works best for it is if you just find a pair of sharp shears, just poke through, and just at least get the opening so it's on both sides. This is just a wooden skewer, and I'm just poking it through to make the holes round. Actually, I had thrown away some wire, but then I was like, oh, I can use this floral wire. So then I decided to make the handles out of this. So now we're going to use some cling wrap, and this is one of the first techniques that we're going to do to distress this and add some more texture and depth to it. We're just going to do a thin wash with the gray, and then we're going to apply the cling wrap, and we're going to let that dry. Now while that's drying, we're going to go back to the handles. We're going to take our wire, and I'm just using a pair of needle nose pliers, and I'm going to bend it into the shape. And again, I'm not measuring anything, I'm just kind of eyeballing it and looking at it and seeing where I need to make the bends. I'm going to secure it with some hot glue in the back, and then we'll trim the edges and everything. So now that this is mostly dry, we're going to peel it back. And if you look closely, you can see the technique that it placed over top of it. Or I shouldn't say the technique, you can see the effect that it placed over top of it. And I feel that this just gives it that grunge, beat up, like a old vintage look to it. So now we're going to go through again, we're going to do another wash, except for this time we're going to use some alcohol in a spray bottle with the watered down acrylic, and we're just going to spritz it. And then we're going to let that dry with nothing on it. Now, it's mostly dry right now, and what we're going to do is put a paper towel over it, and then we're just going to pat it. And by this, it's going to, one, soak up all the excess paint, but then it also will be able to peel it back if there's any that's too loose. So you can see a couple spots that did that, And I actually like that green spot. It looks like it's got some depth to it because of that happened. It really shows the layer underneath. So now we're just going to glue the handles on, and again, you can see where the end is. I had to kind of draw over top of the handle. And now we're going to get into the hands, which is what I've been waiting to do. Probably my favorite part. So we're just going to apply some glue to this. One is going to help the paint adhere to it. I don't want to prime it or anything because I still do want the actual plastic colors shining through. And then we're just going to paint around in different areas. We're not even going to paint the entire hand. We're just going to kind of blot the paint on, kind of smear it in different areas. And then we'll just go through with a lot of thin layers on each one. And by the time we do it to each one, then the first one should be dry, and then we can go back. You can see here I'm just taking a little sponge and I'm making some texture and patterns within the flesh of it. And then just going back and adding, again, more thin layers. So while those are drying, we're going to glue in the frame, and I'm just using a wooden skewer to push that back and secure it in there to make sure that it's flush. And then I'm checking the back side to make sure that it can still open. So here I'm using the hot glue just to create some lines and texture. We've painted these as well, so now you can see that they look pretty cool. We're going to add a little bit more, because again, it's all about the layers. And when you start adding glue and the hot glue, it gives it texture, especially if you rub the regular glue, the Elmer's glue. If you rub that, it'll kind of like create these holes that looks really cool. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do this. You just want to try to make it look as fleshy as possible. So wrapping up with these, I think I'm going to use a Sharpie to give it some veins. I'm not sure if I should use blues and greens or if I should just use like a red. I don't want to overdo it because then I feel like it'll look too overworked and complicated, I guess you should say. I do like the way that the red is coming out on this, and I'm just going to stipple it, add some dots and things like that just to make it look like there's splatter. And then cover the fingertips and everything with red because the hand should be bloody. And now we're going to go through and just start securing these in with some hot glue. So we'll start by doing it in the front at first, and we'll get them in the position that we want and let it dry. And then we'll flip it over, and then we'll secure them from the back as well, so that way we can make sure that they don't move at all when we're doing this. Now for the chain, I'm just going to take this necklace and paint it black. For the backdrop, I just felt it was too empty, so I just took some tissue paper, and it has like this marbling effect on it, and I just glued it on and adhered it. I taped the back of it on and then marked out the edges. And I'm just going to put in beads of glue along the edges and place the frame back on it. Now, if you enjoyed this craft, be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Hopefully you did. Again, it's really Rafe. And drop a comment below and let me know what you think of this one.